Namaste students, Hamesha Kushrovitia. I am JV'n's Dr. Neeraj Dholia, Faculty of Agriculture and Veterinary Science, Jayoti Vidhyapeeth from University, Jaipur. So today we are going to discuss the topic, the fertilization and the pollen germination. So this topic was incomplete in the previous lecture, and so let's start. So the fertilization process in the plants it have the 5 stages: pollination, the pollen germination, penetration of pollen tube into the ovule, fertilization, and the cell division in the zygote. So let's start with the first, the pollination. So what it means that the anthers in the pollination process, the pollen grains from the male anther of the flower to reaches to the female stigma. So during this process, the anthers elevate by elongating the stamen filaments, and ultimately they go out and speculate during the anthesis. So the pollination process means the transfer of the pollen grains to the stigma of the female. The this process can be mediated by the various mediators like the insects, birds, birds, water, wind, humans, and even the plants themselves also. So, in the self-pollination process. So, the pollination often occurs within a species, and it is known as the sorry. This is occurring the naturally. When the pollination occurs between the species, it can produce hybrid offsprings. So, when the pollination is possible between the species, okay, between the two species, so it will produce the hybrid of offsprings or hybrid plants, and that is also occurs in the nature and in the lab also. So next is the pollen germination. So pollen germination it starts when the pollen grains are reached to the stigma. They absorbs the water and the other nutrients, and then it starts to grow a pollen tube-like structure. So stigma starts to germinate to grow pollen tube towards the egg cell. So pollen tubes are the pathways for sperm to reach the egg. So in the flowering plants, however, the ovules are present in the pistil, and the pollen is deposited on the pistil receptive surface, the stigma. See, on the stigma, the germination of pollen grains starts with the absorption of the water and nutrients. So pollen grains produces a tiny pollen tube through the style of the ovary. So the tube cell enlarges and it comes out of the pollen grains through one of the germ pores to form the pollen tube. Pollen tube nucleus descends to tip of the pollen tube. So the generative cell also passes into it, and very soon it divides into two male gametes. So next, after the germination of pollen tube, the step is the penetration of pollen tube into the ovule. So during the penetration process, the pollen tube reaches to the ovule. So in the fertilization process, in the higher plants, there are the double fertilization processes. And in the step one, the fertilization of egg is there that makes the seed. And in the second step, the fertilization of the pollen nuclei is there. And so in the ovule, other than the egg, there are other cells are also there that are known as the polar nuclei. And the fertilization of the polar nuclei is there, and they lead to the formation of the endosperm, and that is the reserve food for the developing plant. So next step is division of the zygote. So division starts to develop an embryo. Thank you, and hope you are satisfied with this detailed session. And if you have any query, please write in the comment box. And this session is powered by digital version 2 Jyoti Vidhyapeeth, Women's University Jaipur. Thank you.